This is Wildcat Country.
Larson tipped it. Love has it. Lewis slams it, and Arizona wins it.
The inside scoop on the Arizona Wildcats.
It's Gunnar Maldonado. He's got blockers. Touchdown, Arizona.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bear down.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale, and we are, 10 days away from college football being underway for week 0. Not really matchups that are thrilling. However, we have Iowa State and Kansas State, and Arizona's first opponent, Hawaii, plays. So, Shane, we are picking games next week. Personally, I can't believe it. And we're going to talk some football this week with our buddy Barrett Baker, which makes me feel like football season is back. And now, basically between next week and the end of March, we're going to be talking football and basketball. This is when it gets fun.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll be fun. If nothing else, the last segment will be fun when we make our picks. But look, it'll be fun either way. Arizona has a decent season and surprises us, and that'll be fun. And if not, then I'm one who generally enjoys complaining, and so yeah. No, I know. I don't enjoy people's reaction to it, but I do enjoy getting it out. So it's an opportunity for us to vent. But yeah, I like this part of the season because it's like that scene in Fever Pitch where they open up back when they actually had physical tickets. They open up the Boston Red Sox baseball season tickets, and they're like smelling them, and they're going, clean slate, a new season, a fresh start. That's how it feels right now. It's like once the game. Sometimes whether it's a season or a game, I kind of look forward to just the anticipation more. Like when Arizona was about to play Duke in the Sweet 16, it's like, okay, they're probably going to lose, but for now we can dream that maybe they won't. Maybe they'll pull off the upset. And they didn't finish too far away from doing that. So it's the time of the season where all hope is still intact until, at least late in the first quarter of the first game.
Well, let's get to buy or sell, or I guess that's what this first segment is, but it's not really a buy or sell. We're going to play a little bit different. So at Fox Sports, number one, this guy, RJ Young, I don't know much about him, to be honest, but he ranked all 136 teams, and he has Arizona at like 36 or 38. 38. Now, mind you, he has ASU at 23, which is lower than in most places. He has Colorado at 25, which is insane. But give me one word to describe how where RJ Young ranks Arizona, 38.
Generous. Now, it's funny if you thought it back to a year ago, we'd all scoff at 38 and think it was disrespectful, but here we are. But like you said, this guy has some pretty bold takes, let's say. Like you said, Colorado at 25, Houston at 31, Baylor's 44 below Arizona. He's got K-State 19, which is my pick to win the Big 12. Texas Tech 22, which I think is your pick to win the Big 12. Mm-hmm. ASU 23, Iowa State 28, K-State or Kansas rather at 33. Look, is that possible? Sure. But like I said, I think this program's probably a year away. I really like the coaching staff Brent Brennan's assembled. He's acknowledged some mistakes from last year and added some very good recruiters and just strategists, in-game strategists, specifically Seth Dagey and Joe Salavea. But there's so many new faces, especially up front. It comes down to if Arizona is better than expected on both the offensive and defensive line, then yeah, I could see that for this year. I could see 38 or even better. It's a lot to ask, though. A lot of unproven names out there. But 38th overall, I think 8th in the Big 12, which would have been a disappointment last year, and that goes to show how quickly things can change. I think that's just a bridge too far for me going into the season, but I hope I can replay this in a couple months and laugh at how wrong I was.
My one word to describe his ranking of Arizona is batshit. Pardon the expression, but it's true. It's crazy, right? Like, Arizona has shown nothing to be 38th overall. Now, could they end up there? Yes. But realistically, this team has shown nothing in Brent Brennan's tenure at Arizona that says they should be ranked this highly. There's no
Now,
way.
I did see this thing about an hour or so before we were recording here. A list of, was it on Three Sports? I forget who put this out, of the most undervalued teams based on preseason rankings going back to 2014. And Arizona was number 19 on that list. Now
Okay.
ASU was ninth, so you have to take it with you consider that, take it with a grain of salt. But of course, you include 2014, that helps because Arizona had a great year in 2014. Um, but yeah, Arizona's kind of an afterthought for a lot of, and I kind of, as I was reading this, I was kind of thinking maybe Arizona was an afterthought to the guy who wrote this because maybe he's thinking that this is the 2023 Wildcats. But
That's why I actually reread it and I was like, is he talking about this year's team?
yeah,
I mean, you lost your best player. You come off a 4-8 season. You changed both coordinators. You
hmm
lost a lot. I don't see it. I don't understand it. So it's crazy. But
yeah.
okay.
Again, my bold prediction for this year is Arizona will be notably better the
Good.
second half of the season versus the first
And
half of
that's
the season.
important. That's
Yeah,
important.
and not necessarily in terms of record because their two easiest games are early in the season, but I think they will look better to the point where my prediction is that we will feel at least a little bit better about Brent Brennan and this program at the end of the season, even if the win total isn't there.
That's fair. Okay, number two. On a 1 to 10 scale, honestly, how excited are you for Arizona football this fall?
Five. And I'll likely be more excited when the season actually arrives. But I think this is really the first year of the Brent Brennan rebuild. He had a lot of guys who stuck around to his credit after Jed Fish left, but a lot of those guys didn't seem to really want to be here.
Yeah.
And now they're and now all you have, or at least should have at this point, are guys who do want to be here and are all in the program, and I think that's a good thing. This is still a very fluid situation. New faces in the huddle, on the sideline, in the training room, and while there's always going to be players we're not talking about right now who will step up and surprise us, right? I'm sure there will be. There always are. This team just isn't blessed with 4 and 5 star athletes, well, for the most part. So that's probably the big reason where I'm at on the scale right now. But I'm more optimistic than I was more optimistic going into last year. I thought I was expecting big things, and that was probably that in hindsight was foolish. But I take heart in knowing that the guys who are here definitely want to be here. The ones who had one foot out the door last year, they're gone, and we don't have to worry about them again.
So I'm actually gonna rank it as 7 out of 10 because it's college football. It's what we've waited for. It's been a long summer, and now every week we're gonna have games. The craziness of the emotions that we're gonna have from week to week. Arizona goes out and wins a week, and then we're like, can they surprise us? Could they win 8 games? And then they go out and they fall flat. I can't wait. It's what I love about the fall. The weather gets cooler. It's just football weather, and every week there's something to talk about. It's a new storyline, and God, I can't wait.
And you know what? I remember when I was at ABC 15, and this was like, gosh, 9 or 10 years ago. But I remember I was watching a U of A. I remember which game it was, but Arizona was about to pull off an upset. And the guy I was working with late that night said, seems like U of A always has at least one big surprise game every year, even when they're not good. They even last year when they won at Utah. I mean,
Utah,
we
yeah.
learned Utah wasn't good either, but that was a heck of a surprise
Yeah.
after what happened the previous week. Even going back to the horrible 2016 season, going out and routing ASU. I'll throw in that prediction as well. There will be at least one Arizona win that will seem to come out of nowhere, even if they're not a good team, because they almost always have one of those. Back in the Pac-10, Pac-12 days, it was Oregon a lot of the time.
Right. Yeah.
But it'll be someone different this year.
So yeah, I mean, it would be a 10 out of 10 if I thought Arizona had a team that was a lock for a bowl game, or I felt was a lock like last year, which obviously didn't turn out to be the case. But 7 out of 10. How excited are you? Let us know in the comments or on X. Number three, I just want to get this in because it's out there. In 3 words or less, I want you to describe Arizona women's basketball's 2025 non-conference schedule. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's all home games. Every single game's at home. Shane, describe that 3 words or less on that schedule.
Yeah, uninspiring but needed. I would say not a lot of big opponents. We had Coach Burke on the show a few weeks ago. She had the attitude, and she sold it to me of bring it, we'll play anyone, and I believe her. And hopefully they'll schedule some tougher opponents down the road. But you talk about a lot of new faces on a team. Women's basketball is at the top of that list for Arizona Athletics, and having some supposedly easier competition and at home to sort of ease into the schedule and this new group. I don't think it's a bad thing, unless you're already thinking NCAA tournament with this team, which I think even best case scenario was probably a year away. So it uninspiring, but I think it's kind of hopefully like for the football team with Hawaii and Weber State, it's a chance to kind of get your feet wet, get comfortable, and gel as a team.
I'm gonna take liberty with this one and say I'm kind of disappointed. I know kind of isn't a real word, but just go with it. Here's the thing. I want to see, not that Tommy Lloyd is over the top, and I understand what Becky Burke did here, but I mean, give us something. I mean, they gotta go on the road. They gotta know what it's like to play a road game before conference season. I feel like it's a disadvantage for this team that's not going to have that experience. And I think they're going to it's going to be a rude awakening at on the road every in the Big 12 because of that, Shane. That's where I have a problem with it.
But again, if this were and I don't mean to compare them to the men's team, but I'm just since their schedule is in such stark contrast to the brutal schedule of the men's basketball team. I want to bring it up if because our aspirations for the men's team just about every year is Final Four. We'd like to see that, at least see them have an opportunity to get there, and even though it hasn't happened for a long time. And I think that having that kind of gauntlet of a schedule at the regular season is a good thing, and will be a good thing in the future for the men's team. The women's team, that's not the aspiration. It's just not. It's a brand new team, a brand new program. Becky Burke's already brought in some good recruits as well.
Yeah,
She's doing a great job. And I think that the program is going to be very good with her, but it is year one or kind of year zero if you're into that sort of terminology. And I don't, they're kind of dipping their toe into the water a little bit. And for this season and this season only, I don't mind that perspective.
I would have liked to have seen more, and I admire what Coach Burke is doing. Would have liked to have seen more. All right, as always, Wildcat Country is brought to you by Harrah's Auction Casino. We are very grateful to call them our primary sponsor of the show. And calling all Wildcat fans, did you know that Harrah's Auction Casino is your local home for Caesars Rewards? Every play unlocks perks at more than 50 destinations nationwide. Enjoy free dining in Atlantic City, hotel stays in New Orleans, and exclusive rewards from coast to coast. Sign up today, earn reward credits, and experience nationwide play only at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Caesars Rewards in Arizona. Coming up next, it's Barrett Baker here on Wildcat Country. Shane, for the first time since early April, it's time to have our buddy Barrett Baker on to talk some football in an appearance unofficially number 21 on this program. But before we get going, Shane, you brought this up before the show. Mr. Baker here has a new position. Congratulations, and do tell us where you rank in the Tucson Fire Department now.
Always good to talk football with you guys. Again, optimism at the beginning of the season. On a personal note, timing and opportunity, right? That's what life is. And so really lucky that about 4 months ago, I got an opportunity and I was promoted to assistant chief with Tucson Fire. I get to oversee our employee and community services division. So some real positive work, health and wellness, community outreach. I think it's a good fit, and it's let's go, right? Foot on the gas and see if we can make an impact.
And he still finds time for us. Congratulations, Barrett. Very well deserved. And I'm not blowing smoke here. When I worked for City of Goodyear, I worked in communications with all the different departments. Fire was my favorite to work with, and it wasn't close. So you guys are awesome.
We really do. We've got a lot of great people, almost 700 people in the City of Tucson Fire Department. Try to do our best every day, and we're lucky that we get to serve.
And you guys are heroes. I mean, that's what it is. And we can never thank you all enough for what you do. All right, let's talk a little football here. You've been out to fall practice. I'm trying. We know you're Mr. Optimism. Which unit has impressed you the most?
I think the wide receiver position, when you look at the different types of receivers that we have on the roster, from all the way going back to Hunter, who's like a returning, somewhat of a known commodity, but still at the very infant stages of what he could be. And then you bring in some of the proven guys like Hudson, who at a Pac-12 level did very good for Washington State. Mix in Spivey, who from a physical standpoint checks all the boxes. Watley. I just think from 1 to 7, we've really got Wysong from New Mexico. Who are you going to cover? And I know that we've talked about that before, but you can never say that it's improvement when you lose somebody like Tetero McMillan. But defensive coordinators are smart, and they can do things on defense to basically minimize the impact of a T-Mac. But now we've got 5 guys that really can get open on every single play. And so I think from, again, just that depth standpoint, and then from, true freshmen with Gio and Isaiah all the way up to some of the senior leaders that we have on the team, it's going to be a really good group to watch.
Barrett, this almost seems like a crazy question to ask, but it's never stopped me before. Losing T-Mac, do you think that might actually be a good thing for Noah Fifita in terms of, kind of you don't have that safety net anymore. You got to find ways to spread the ball around. Do you think that could help with his maturation?
Yeah, semantics, right? I mean, it's like you said, it's difficult to say it would ever help him because Tetero is going to succeed at the NFL level, right? He's already showing in his first training camp for Carolina that he is the guy. And so when you have the ability to rely on that and just throw it up and get bailed out often, then you don't have to necessarily go through your reads or progressions as you would. And I think that we did, the truth hurts, but we saw that last year. We saw receivers open and he didn't get to them in his progressions. And so I think when you have 5 guys now, and if you run a 3 wide receiver set, or if you go with 4 wide receivers, one of those 4 is going to get open in the system. And so it's incumbent upon him to make his pre-snap reads, to see what the defense looks like before the snap, and then trust your reads after the snap. And one of those 4 is going to be open, and throw it on time and get it to him, and then let them, do the rest.
What do you think about Seth Diggy? I mean, I think he was hired before we had you on last time, but just, I don't know if you got a chance to get to know him at all. We had him on the show a couple months ago, and we were very impressed. Your thoughts on him and how he'll do with the offense this season, especially with so many new faces. And of course, he's a new face too.
Sure. I mean, what are your peers saying about you? And I think that's really, really important because it's easy to look at what he did in his past stops. And he's been a lot of places. And so I think he's talked about that. What did he pick up at Ole Miss? What did he pick up at Marshall? What did he pick up at USC? So he's got the pedigree. He's got the past, so to speak, to draw from. But Danny Gonzalez has been around football for a long time, and he says this guy is the guy, right? The players themselves, they're going to bat for him. And so I think I'm more impressed by that the people that are working with him, and Coach Brennan and Coach Daggy, they did not have a previous relationship. So, they're taking a chance on each other, and there's a lot on the line would be an understatement. But by all accounts, and I literally say by all accounts, off the record stuff, what you see in his interviews, it's all positive. And I think that he's got that type of wiring that he is going to demand success from himself. And when you demand success from yourself, then it bleeds into everybody else as well. And he sets the bar really high with the expectations.
Yeah, and that's what I'm really excited about for Arizona this year. The offense should be fun. Last year it was stale, it was ugly, it was boring. And Seth Doege, I mean, I was impressed with what I saw from him at Marshall last year. I mean, that was a team that not a lot of people watched. As somebody who likes to bet on random games, I did, and they were pretty darn good. Let me ask you about the defense. I know that's the side of the ball that obviously you played on and care about. I think Coach Gonzalez is a good guy. I think they are probably going to struggle. What do you expect, and what have you seen from them thus far?
So I think, is the past indicative of the future, right? Or the present for that matter. And if we say yes, then I would feel very good about where we're going. Because when you look at Danny Gonzalez again, what is his past? And he coached under Rocky Long. He was at New Mexico. He was successful there. He goes to San Diego State. He is successful there. He goes to Arizona State. He's successful there. And those were all in the role of defensive coordinator. So it's chess, not checkers when it comes to being a coordinator. You are looking at statistics. You're knowing exactly that 87% of the time, if they're in 3rd and 7 or more, that they do this. And you have to have that ability to match and play that chess game. So when, defenses in some regards, they're countering what the offense does. So if I am looking and I can see that they're coming out in heavy personnel, then we're going to match personnel with that. If they're coming out in ghost formation with 5 wide receivers, we're going to match that. He has a very good ability to forecast what the other offense is going to do and match it. And he said this multiple times. His job is to give a picture before the snap, and then post-snap, that picture's got to be different. So if I think you're in a cover 2 pre-snap, and then post-snap, it's not a cover 2, it's some sort of robber defense with an umbrella over the top, whatever that may be, it confuses offenses. And so I'm much more optimistic about what we can do on defense, I think, than necessarily the players that we have in those 11 spots. I think schematically, we're going to make things a little bit more challenging. And that's not a shot at Coach Aquina. Last year, we didn't have the players to do it. You start getting complex with your defense, you have to have 2 and 3 deep in order to do that. If you're getting to your 2nd and 3rd string guys, they might not understand the complexities of a defense. So I think going into this, having Coach Gonzalez install the defense in the spring, and now we're getting the fall camp into it, I think it's starting to come together.
Shane and I are having kind of a little debate here. We've been talking about this over the last few weeks. I think Arizona has to make a bowl game. And I don't think there are any excuses at this point. Arizona has to go 6-6. He and I asked Brent Brennan this in person. I said, Coach said, absolutely fair to say that. What does a good season for Arizona football in 2025 look like to you?
I mean, progress. And how do we measure progress in football? And it's wins and losses. So I think you pointed out I can be as optimistic as possible. That being said, we've got to make sure that the foundation that Coach Brennan is laying, because last year was a dud, right? If you're going about preseason expectations and what we thought the team was going to be, and then what we ended up at the end of the season, that's not going to cut it. So now revamping the roster and bringing in 50 new players, getting some recruiting foundation, so to speak, what's got to translate to the wins and losses. When you bring in Coach Daggy, when you bring in Coach Navar to do special teams, when you bring in Coach Gonzalez, 3 new coordinators, that's a lot of turnover in addition to the roster and the players. It's a win now type of scenario in college football, but I think that we've seen that can happen elsewhere. And so I believe in it, but to your point, I do think that you have to get an improvement over last season in the win column, and that's a 6-7 type of record.
Yeah, and that, just so you know, the reason Eric and I disagree is, yes, I obviously it always comes down to wins and losses, but I think Arizona could have a season where they win 5 or even 4 games. They look better. They're more competitive. I'd feel better about the future. The cliche, you lose big, then you lose small, win big. So I mean, I know there's, even if they say they go into Ames and they lose a close game, they go into Tempe. I know there's nothing but shame in losing to ASU, but ASU's a good team. They go to Tempe and they battle. Maybe you feel good about that. Do you think there's a scenario where Arizona goes 4-8 or 5-7 and we still can feel good about the season at the end of the year?
Yeah, that's a tougher one, but I think each coach kind of says this in today's world. Right, year one for the coaching staff, it's actually year 0, because the difference in, again, coming in late, and these aren't excuses. I think it's reality, and I think that hindsight's always 20/20. Yeah. But how hard can you coach a squad when you have players like your starting quarterback that is in the portal the entire time? I mean, what are you going to do with that? So you have kids that were technically staying around. But how dedicated are they? And then technically, how hard can you coach them? Yeah. Because if I slam you and I put my foot and we coach you the way that we want to coach you, then you might leave at the end of spring, and now we don't even have the numbers. So it's not revisionist history, but I think truly this is year 1 in regards to the fact that whatever players are on the roster this year are here to play under Coach Brennan. And I think everyone can feel that. And I think that at the end of the day, recruiting is challenging, and we brought in, let's just say, 5 offensive linemen. Football's won in the trenches. So if you have Akpa and Gu and Tohi and some of these kids, well, guess what? In 3 years, you're going to know whether they were hits or misses. We won't know that right now because it's impossible. But down the line, have we done the job to lay that foundation? And I would say that they're doing a very effective job of that.
And you made some same points. I feel good about the points I made in the first segment because you made a lot of them. If Barrett Baker saying it, then I feel better about it. All right, I got 2 more questions for you. Put yourself in the shoes of an assistant coach at Arizona. In today's landscape, the transfer portal, NIL, Arizona is, as far as we know, just not as, realistically, just not as competitive as, no one's as competitive as the SEC schools, but just not very competitive there in general as far as other Power 4 programs. What do you say? Like, if you go visit a recruit, like a 4-star recruit who you might be in the mix for, how do you convince them to come play at Arizona when you have so much more competition, including from schools who could just pay them more, essentially?
The pay is always going to be a challenge, but I think there's 100 kids in the locker room that are going to do that for the coaching staff. And I won't say who it was, but when I did go out to practice last week, there's someone that is tied into the program in some capacity, support service, I'll say. He's been around since the early 2000s, so he's been through the last 5 coaches. And he said, far and away, Coach Brennan is the best person that I've ever worked for. So as a human being, okay, that's kind of what it boils down to. And he had some great models when it comes to Coach Tomey and obviously others, Mike Riley at Oregon State. He knows how to treat people. And I think that family-oriented locker room in which, again, you're taking kids that are 18 to 22, you're making them good people for the rest of their lives. And there's something to that. And I don't think that the team has to BS their way through that. And so if you're that 18-year-old kid that comes on your visit and you can see that authenticity and understand that at certain other programs, you might not even ever get to talk to a head coach. And yet with this coach, there is a true open door policy where you can go talk to him about life. And so not to make myself important, but if I go to practice and Coach Brennan takes time out of that practice on a break to talk to me for 8 to 10 minutes about multiple things, well, what's he doing for the people that truly matter? Yeah. And that's multiplied. So I think the program sells itself when you have the Danny Gonzalez's, who is just a good person on top of being a good coach. Coach Brennan is the epitome of that. And when you get good people on the staff like Coach Salovey and they treat people the right way, then the program recruits itself.
Follow up on that, and this doesn't count as my last question there, just so you know. But the way you describe Brent Brennan sounds a heck of a lot like the head coach you used to play for. Does he remind you of Coach Tomey in any way?
Yeah, it doesn't matter if Sione Uluwave is 409 pounds. He's a 20-year-old kid. So the physical component of what we look like doesn't necessarily match up to what a person goes through when they're 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. And today's world is even more challenging with all the social media, the love and the hate that they get on their Instagram and this and that, and the 24-hour news coverage that they're constantly battling. So if you don't have someone that makes you feel important as a person, much less a player, what are we doing? Because it's still supposed to be student athletes. And it's really gotten mixed up here over the last 5 years for sure, where money is just insane. But they're still kids and they still have parents that had been their role models and their father figure and mother figure. And now you've got 10 coaches that have to take that role over. And when you've got the guys like the Bobby Wades and the Joes and Coach Bringale, like these are good people. Yeah. And a lot of them played college football. And so they've been through that and they know how to relate and they can help in those steps.
All right, last question for you, Barrett. Really good insight as always on your unofficially 21st appearance in Wildcat Country. What do you want to see from Arizona in the first game of the season? When you I'm assuming you're going to be there, you're going to watch them, Arizona, Hawaii. What could you see from that game, other than the winning, obviously, that would just make you say, all right, I'm feeling even better about this team going into the rest of the season?
There's such turnover in the roster and there's such turnover in the coaching staff. But Hawaii's going to be physical. They always are. They're going to have some size from the Polynesian background that they have from so many of their players. But are we Arizona football? And if we're Arizona football that's trying to make a comeback, then you have to be able to do that with authority. So Seth Doege has to have a game plan that is easily executable to where we out-athlete them 11 on 11. Danny Gonzalez has to be able to find 11, or I'll say 22 guys that every time that whistle blows, that for that 20 seconds, they are insane lunatics that have bad intentions until the whistle blows. And I think Coach Doege has said that we have to play not physical, we have to play violently. And so I want to see a return to violence, and I want to see, and it's hard because it's a different game than it was, 20 or 30 years ago with personal fouls and unsportsmanlike and targeting and this and that. But I want to see insane play between the whistles. And I think if we get that, then we will out-athlete Hawaii. And I think obviously we should win. But let's see some explosive plays. Let's see Tyler Powell turn into an NFL prospect that his body at 6'7" and 250 pounds looks like. That's what I want to see.
Just to start the petition now to have return to violence as the official hashtag for Arizona football in 2025.
RTV.
There you go. You're muted, Eric.
Yeah, of course I am. I don't know that if that's going to happen, but hey, I appreciate both of your idea. All right, last one for you, Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the schedule, and to me, Baylor in November at home, it's kind of that pivot game for me that Arizona wins that. I think they make a bowl game. Arizona loses that. I think they're out. What do you think is the most important game at Arizona Stadium this season, in your opinion? You got Hawaii, Weber State, Kansas State, I believe it's Oklahoma State, BYU, Kansas, and Baylor are the 7 home games.
So I'm going to really fast forward that question or answer, and I'm just going to say right off the bat, to me, it's K-State. Because the first 2 games, you are working out the kinks, and you got to stay healthy for those first 2 games. So Hawaii and Weber State, let's just get all of the bad things out right then and there. Kansas State is where we need to be as a program, right? I mean, they're an established program, and I think when you play them, you're going to have a little bit of a barometer as to where we're at. Last year, we're in the game at halftime, a special teams blunder, a couple turnovers in the red zone, and that just flipped that very, very quickly. And I think that we can compete with them. And so if we can come out and smash them in the face and return to violence and have a big impact, then again, the team starts believing. And that's really, really important for a locker room. They haven't done a lot of winning under Coach Brennan. So if we get those 2 wins and then we can do something early in the season to Kansas State, then all of a sudden I think that you start believing in your coaches, you start believing in your teammates, and you rack up that positive momentum. So I'm going to just say early in the season, that 3rd game is really important.
Barrett, we've made it. It's football season. I can't believe it's finally here. It feels like it was just yesterday we were talking to you about spring ball and in April, and yet that was 4 months ago. So here we are. We look forward to chatting with you a bunch throughout the season. Always appreciate your optimism and breakdown of things. And I have a feeling we'll be talking to you in the next 3 or 4 weeks at the latest.
Great stuff, guys. Always appreciate it. And let's bear down and get a couple wins.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi, folks. Here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
Always good to catch up with Barrett. He is optimistic, and it kind of makes you feel. Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes you feel a little bit better. What he's seen. I mean, the wide receiver unit is getting a lot of run there, a lot of play, good play in the media. So kind of excited to see what they look like come opening day.
Yeah, it's interesting how we keep hearing praise for the wide receiver unit. Even like Phil Steele mentioned as well. They lose arguably the best wide receiver in the history of the program and their best player last year, and the first unit that a lot of guys or a lot of experts and even U of A or not attached to U of A mentioned as a wide receiver. So that's a good thing, and hope and you combine that with Kean Burnett coming back as well, and Noah should hopefully you miss T Mac, a guy he's thrown to since eighth grade, but hopefully he'll have a lot more options going into this season.
So you brought up an interesting point on X. Let's talk about it here. Which play, if gone differently, could have significantly altered the course of an Arizona athletics program? I mean, this is a tough one, but obviously you have something in mind. So what do you got?
Well, and this came from Juan Serrano noted on X that he said Sean Poindexter days until Arizona football. His number nine. In other words, 19 days at that time until Arizona football. And I noted that Poindexter, he was a great receiver that we don't really talk about. But he also got called for that bogus block in the back when Sean Brown had that punt return for a touchdown against ASU in 2017 that would have given U of A the lead late in that game. And then Logan on X said, "Here's an interesting thought about that. If the penalty isn't called, Arizona probably beats ASU. Debatable, but much better chance than they would have. And Rich Rod is never fired, and Kevin Sumlin never comes to Arizona." Now, it's interesting. First of all, Rich Rodriguez was let go, I think, more because of off-field stuff. So I don't know if that would have changed things. But if it had, I love like parallel universe, alternate reality stuff. I'm kind of a geek when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I love thinking about, the kind of whole butterfly effect. What if one play had gone differently? And so that got me thinking about some others and from various programs in Arizona.
Yeah.
And so Sean Brown's punt return for a touchdown. Absolutely. That could be one of them. The other one, maybe Alex and Dehas's block extra point against, if U of A was kind of on a downturn, but they started that season 7-1. They had lost 3 games in a row going into that game. If they win that one, they have 8 wins, and maybe they have a little more momentum going into the season. Who knows? Maybe Mike Stoops would have been on his way out anyway. But those are a couple I think of for football. For men's basketball, a couple heartbreakers that to mention. Jamel Horn's 3 goes in against UConn.
Yeah,
they go to the Final Four. Maybe there's a different trajectory for Arizona. They get better recruits, and they go to more final. Who knows? And then, of course, there's the offensive foul called against Nick Johnson versus Wisconsin in the Elite Eight as well. If either of those had gone differently and Arizona had made a Final Four, would Sean Miller still be Arizona's coach? Of course, he still would have had the scandal with Brooke Richardson, but would things have been have gone differently? Women's basketball, the obvious one, if Ari McDonald's shot against Stanford would have gone in. Would things have been different? I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. The Dia Barnes situation seems kind of messy, so maybe she was bound to leave anyway. But a national championship, how would that have changed things? And then on the baseball side, Arizona gets an extra base hit to beat Coastal Carolina in the 2016 College World Series. I forget who was at bat in that last. Who was the last batter there? If you remember, let me know. Send me a comment. Leave it in the comments. But they win it. Maybe Jay Johnson's. So a lot of it has to do with head coaches. Would Jay Johnson have stayed longer if Arizona had won it? I don't know. Again, it's just you can think about a lot of different games and a lot of different situations, but like one specific play that could have altered a program. Those are just some that came to mind for me.
So mine's I don't know if it's one specific play, but the first thing that came to my mind was 2005 Elite Eight against Illinois. And what happens if Arizona with that team gets to the Final Four, veteran Channing Frye, veteran Salim Stoudemire, Lute's last hurrah. Where does Lute, Lute's already an icon in Tucson, but where does he go down and, with potentially another national championship? And a third national championship game, potentially, another Final Four. And just that whole sequence of events from inside the 4-minute mark. If any of those plays had gone differently, Arizona wins the game.
Yeah. There's a lot of what ifs when it comes to Arizona in the Elite Eight, unfortunately.
And I think that's the one that I think the most about. If you guys have suggestions, let me know. The other game that I think about when it comes to what ifs for Arizona is, and I was watching highlights actually the other day on X, was 2009 Oregon, Arizona. And I mean, the fans rushed the field. I mean, Ed Dixon caught a touchdown with. I mean, both of us were, and we will never probably see an atmosphere like that at Arizona Stadium. It's at least going to be a long time.
Mike Stoops goes for 2. You know, because again, because Jeremiah Masoli in the Oregon offense was unstoppable.
Was not going to be stopped.
They're not going to be stopped. And so Mike Stoops had a chance to pull his guys over and say, look, guys, win or lose, we're not going to let their offense back on the field. 3 yards to win the game or lose the game, one play. Again, hindsight's 2020, but and again, I'm trying not to go into like heartbreakers, but just like what single play could have changed the trajectory of a program, could have kept a coach from getting fired or gotten a coach to stay longer. Those are the big things I'm trying to.
That was Mike Stoops' last hurrah. I mean, it really was, because they started out next season good and then kind of fell off, and that was
they started 7-1 the following year. They were in the top 10, and then they just fell off the face of the earth.
Fell off. I mean, but then the Holiday Bowl came, I know they won at USC. They beat ASU, and then they won at USC in 2009. Then the Holiday Bowl happened. They started out good in 2010, but it just kind of killed that momentum. If Arizona wins that game, Arizona's probably playing in the Rose Bowl that year. And it would have changed the whole Arizona in a Rose Bowl changes the whole perception of this program.
True.
I mean,
and it's hard to imagine that the first coach to lead Arizona to the Rose Bowl would have been fired 2 years later.
Right. And who knows? It's funny, we had Rich Rod on one of our early shows, and we asked him, I don't know if you remember the Egg Bowl when the Elijah Moore caught the old piss. Piss. Yeah, well, he got fired. Rich Rod was the OC, got fired. He and Matt Luke, who was the head coach, who they hire? Lane Kiffin, which ended up great for Ole Miss. But Rich Rod, you had mentioned the Poindexter, block in the back and everything. Who knows if that would have saved his job, but it was a very disappointing second half in that ASU game in 2017.
It was. Well, by the way, did you see Rich Rod a nature is healing moment? Rich Rod's yelling at his players at West Virginia again in practice. He's right back to where he should be.
College football is better with Rich Rodriguez at West Virginia.
With Rich Rodriguez coaching in general.
But at a big school, at a big, and they're going to beat Arizona in his tenure probably. But wish him well. I think it's cool. We're glad we had him. He's a nice guy. He's been on this show a couple of times. You and I both talked to him multiple times. Obviously,
there's two versions of Rich Rodriguez. There's the nice, affable guy that we talk to, and there's the guy who takes the field, and which is true for a lot of players as well.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll mention, this does not have to do with the Arizona Wildcats, but I got to mention it because it's my favorite kind of butterfly effect scenario, and because you're a Green Bay Packers fan. That touchdown by Nate Poole last second against the Vikings in 2003 to knock the Vikings out of the playoffs and send the Packers to the playoffs. That actually, on the other end of that cost the Cardinals the number 1 overall pick. They end up getting number 3. Draft a guy named Larry Fitzgerald, who ends up helping knock the Packers out of the playoffs twice later on. So it's just funny how those. I'm just saying that's the kind of things that I think about when I think about like the butterfly effect. What if one play had gone differently, and it could change the whole future of a franchise?
I'll give you one more that is professional sports related to one of my favorite teams and a place that you had been. Speaking of 2003, the Steve Bartman play.
Oh yeah,
I mean. Moises Alou catches that ball. There's two outs in the 8th inning, and we're all good.
I'll give you one more from that inning. If Alex Gonzalez doesn't boot that double play,
correct.
They still have a chance if he makes that double. Even he turns that.
Yep. It was something. Anyways, just the ultimate what ifs. Good topic.
I love it.
All right. We're getting close to football season. I can't wait. I know you can't wait listening out there. We always appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate our sponsor, Harrah's Auction Casino. Appreciate Barrett Baker joining us. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. And as always, bear down.